You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Live every Tuesday night, whether the Golden Globes are here or never to be seen again, on all the social media platforms, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can check us out. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And those are the cries of all the people who have been screaming, wanting a spot at the Golden Globes and have a platform.
I see.
And now they have it.
That's right. That awful Hollywood foreign press, just they were so undiverse and so bigoted, and now they're back on air because they fixed the problem.
That's right.
The problem.
Yeah. No doubt. They fixed it.
All right, Dan.
It has been healed. You know, that was the scream and the torturous sound of all those diverse souls that have never been heard before in our culture. And nothing more than, a white man to bring that to our attention.
Well,
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, I feel bad
hired,
for sitting here.
Apparently, he's
three white men.
He's a comedian. I've never heard of him, so maybe I'm in the wrong here. But Jared Carmichael is the host. They're giving Eddie.
He's not a comedian.
Well, they're giving Eddie Murphy. They're giving Eddie Murphy and his brother the Cecil B. DeMille Award. So they're very much showing they're diverse by having all these black people receive awards and honors because
and an award
that's how you fix the problem is you just blatantly
isn't
go the
Cecil
other
B.
direction.
DeMille an old dead white dude? What about Carol Burnett? That award's being given out too. Isn't she an old dead white woman?
The Hollywood Foreign Press is fixing its diversity issues by grandstanding. Let
Carol
them
Burnett's
do it.
dead, isn't she? I got that right. Carol Burnett's dead.
I think so.
I can't remember if she's dead or alive.
Jacob would know.
So many people have died in the last
I think
year.
She is.
And they always are the greats. That would actually be somebody I wouldn't want to be gone. She's probably gone.
Watch her not be.
She
Googles is telling us.
She's
she's not
89.
dead.
She's 89
Maybe
years
she'll
old.
give out the award.
She died.
She is 89
us.
years old, and we're going to find out later this year when she passes, and we're going to be like, man, we jinxed
called
it.
We just,
Yeah,
we were just
so-
looking
You
ahead.
heard it first.
That was
Yeah,
all.
on the Red Moon
Yeah.
Podcast.
So, if you're tuning in to the show, obviously you're not watching the Golden Globes, and we applaud you for that because
Who the hell would?
we're much more entertaining. We had a few cracks online about the fact that they're airing on a Tuesday night. When does any award show air on a
I
Tuesday
told you-
night?
Did they not know that this was our night?
Oh, no, it
come
was
on.
funny. Keith came up. We went and saw the movie M3GAN, which we're reviewing tonight. We went and saw it on Sunday.
Yeah.
Keith came over right after to
record the review, yeah.
Well, we happened to catch the last few minutes of the
We're not
Packers
talking
game.
about that.
We
It's not
don't-
movie
yeah.
related.
It's gone. It's in the past.
It was awful.
And let's just say that as pissed as we were then a Peacock subscription ad came up, and I was like, oh. And then they were advertising what you can watch, and the Golden Globes happened to be one of those things. And we were January 10th. I was like, that's coming up.
That's Tuesday.
And
Yeah.
I looked, I was like, that's a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
It's like, why are they airing this? And I was like, oh, well, they're not going to preempt NFL football
For the
for a
Globes.
stupid award
It's like
show.
NBC said, we know we used to give you Sunday nights, but it's playoff season and y'all suck. So here, have Tuesday.
I mean, it's sad that you not only have to be ousted for a year off the network,
No.
but the ratings have dwindled so much that they're not even willing to give you a Sunday
Yeah.
night.
It's like,
You're in the
watching
middle of the week.
Nobody's going to watch that.
We got a spot for you on Tuesday night at 9.
And it's sad because ignore the view
It
count.
started at 8,
YouTube
though, didn't it?
It did start
started
at
at
8.
eight,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Ignore the view count, but YouTube lies. We have more viewers. It's actually guaranteed right now. If you look, we have more viewers than the Golden Globes. It's insane.
I believe it.
I mean,
believe
gosh, where's NBC at trying to get their RM podcast?
We're
on a primetime
3
spot?
white guys. That's why.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not
why.
going to get it.
That's it. That's it. Well, and what was it? Who was the actor this week that came out? He was in the Eternals. I'm forgetting his name. It's some Middle Eastern guy.
I think it's like
The Indian guy?
It's
Yes.
Kamal I can't do the last name.
Don't try to pronounce. You're going to
Don't.
butcher his last name.
Yeah.
Don't.
And if you do that, that's racist.
That is.
But he did. He made an excellent point.
no, it's cultural appropriation.
Kumail Nanjiani.
If you get it right, it's cultural
Well,
appropriation.
Nanjiani,
You get it
he
wrong,
had
it's
stated
just
that
offensive.
he's always wanted to play a villain, like not just like a bad person, but like just a really evil bad villain. He thought it'd be fun, and he can't get hired as one because Hollywood won't hire non-white people as villains because that could
And
be
here's the thing.
racist.
I'm just glad he came out and said it.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is, it's not like we haven't noticed.
Yeah.
It's like every
But
dude
he's-
that's a bad guy is white.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, come on.
He said literally that like now
White
they
male.
are limiting
Yep.
the roles that people of color can have because certain roles
Well,
are
of
now
course.
considered racist or non-PC. So if you're a person of color, you're not allowed to play it, which is actually more racist.
Well,
Exactly.
of course, exactly. That's the whole beautiful cycle of life.
Yeah.
It's the circle of life with this woke culture. That's exactly what happens time and time again. Is it just inadvertently they eat themselves? But ultimately, it's funny because it's like you see all these terrible white dudes and they just cross them all off the list. You're evil. You're white. You're toxic masculinity. You got all we fall under that same camp and that
James
banner.
Cameron.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny you bring that up because even one of our headlines tonight is talking about Avatar just continuing to climb the top spots.
It is.
Well, you said toxic masculinity. I just immediately think
Yeah.
of James Cameron.
Well, and Keith even brought up a good point in our text thread today, talking about how all these we have some controversy with Francis Ford Coppola and people
Oh,
wanting
man,
to
yeah.
quit his set.
Every production he has had, I mean, this dates back even to Apocalypse Now, where he fired.
can't imagine why.
Yeah, well, he's notorious for being difficult to work with. He's fired half his cast or half his crew on multiple films. I know that was a huge thing with Apocalypse Now. So with his latest movie, Megalopolis, half the cast and crew, or not cast, I keep saying cast, half the crew have quit because of how he behaves. And I'm like, it's funny to me that the patriarchy and cis white old men are evil according to Hollywood, yet they prop up Francis Ford Coppola, Ridley Scott, James Cameron, David Cronenberg as these geniuses, but everybody hates working with these men because of how
I know.
awful they are. So it's like, how come the people that do deserve to be like, hey, you can't behave that way, that's unprofessional, but we're going to prop them up because they make movies audiences will pay to see.
Fair enough question. Fair enough question. Well, we don't have all those answers because we're three cis white straight dudes.
Yeah.
So we obviously you didn't come to this
But we're
place.
reviewing a movie that was
Yeah.
written by a black woman, so that's important.
Every day is a new day in
important.
history, and every day is a new. I embark on a journey of self-discovery and trying to find,
we're practically the View
And it was
now.
and it
please,
was produced.
please, just forgive me for all of my privilege, and I can only support films like this to showcase a
Can
little
we
bit
roll
of
the
that.
review so I can go drink a $350 cup of coffee, please? While you're talking about
talk
privilege.
about privilege. Here we go. Here's our review of none other the movie, the hot one on the block, other than Avatar, M3GAN.
The start of a new year means a whole new slate of movies. And while there are often the unseen holdovers from December, or Oscar contenders making the rounds before the awards show, the completely new releases always bring with them a surprise. This week's latest release, which has garnered some buzz on social media and been touted by critics, seeks to set itself apart and subvert expectations. From producers Jason Blum and James Wan, whose production companies Blumhouse and Atomic Monster have recently been in talks to merge, comes M3GAN, a sci-fi horror with a blend of comedy that could be our first glimpse at what's to come from these two powerhouse companies if merged. Based on a story by James Wan and directed by Gerard Johnstone, when Katy, played by Violet McGraw, an 8-year-old girl, is in a tragic car accident leaving her parents dead, she is adopted by her Aunt Gemma, portrayed by Allison Williams. Gemma works for Funky, a toy company where she designs toys. Her latest creation, M3GAN, is an AI doll designed to learn and become a child's best friend, and in many ways its caretaker. Gemma, who is consumed by her work, is unprepared for her new role as guardian to her niece, until she gifts her M3GAN, who quickly becomes a substitute guardian designed to ensure Katy is never hurt physically or emotionally. But as every film about AI ever made has warned us, M3GAN begins to take her role as Katy's guardian too far. M3GAN at face value seems like a bizarre and somewhat off-putting film, though M3GAN's design and visuals purposely put her in the uncanny valley precisely to evoke something that is disturbing and off-putting. The film, as stated, blends a healthy dose of campy humor that is excellently done. It also manages to remain effectively creepy when it needs to be, all while addressing themes of parenthood and the use of technology as a substitute for raising one's child. All of this together should have made for a smart and compelling horror with quirky comedic relief. But while fairly witty, the film is not as smart as it could have been. While humorous, it's not an all-out horror comedy. And while creepy, it's never very scary. The film is more or less all around fair, but never great. The themes of letting technology raise your kids are only ever touched on at the surface level, which is a shame, as Katy and Gemma's story of tragedy and learning to be a family could have provided compelling emotional payoff and offered a richer story if these themes had been explored just a bit more. Likewise, as a horror film with comedic elements, it never fully commits to being scary nor laugh-out-loud funny. The camp offers a nice B-horror vibe at times, but while well done, it doesn't offer up anything new or compelling. And after a while, the lack of any real horror deprived the film of any real tension, as its predictability never allowed me to feel the main characters are ever in any real danger. Ultimately, M3GAN is a finely crafted and entertaining film, better than what I expected based on both marketing and its early January release date. That said, while entertaining, it's not as special as critics or its marketing makes it out to be either. It doesn't do anything we've not seen in film before, and its most unique angle, that of technology becoming a foster parent, is underutilized. For this, I give M3GAN 2.5 out of 4 stars.
2.5 out of 4 stars for M3GAN. It's the middle of the pack there. How's that $350 brewer?
Just privilege.
Drinking it. Just love that taste of
I
that.
just burnt my lip on your
I like
privilege.
Well,
It is
if
a very
the
good
Golden
cup.
Globes are going to go full woke, maybe we can go full anti-woke.
Maybe.
I
Maybe.
can just taste my whiteness.
But we're gonna get to that in the headlines.
In your black
we'll get
Good.
we'll get to that with the headlines.
Yeah.
We got to talk about M3GAN first because, yeah, right, like you said, 2.5.
Let's talk about her.
It's got a 90-something from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, so 2.5 doesn't really match that.
Really? It's got a 90?
Well, here's the thing.
much?
We got to
I
remember.
think it's right. It's like 90%.
Every time, though, we do bring up Rotten Tomatoes, and I agree, we talked about
Oh,
the
it's got an
aggregate.
80 with audiences, but that makes sense to me too.
Yeah.
But also, it's an aggregate.
Yes.
I mean, if it's overwhelmingly positive, then it's going to have a higher percentage.
Yep.
So, I mean, I understand why people are liking the film. I get it. It's not, I think, anything special, and I
No.
think it is exactly what we
Well,
rated
I think we're also.
But people would
sometimes-
say that what we've rated it is a favorable review, so
Yeah.
it would be included in the 90%.
Yeah.
That's true.
True.
That's true.
True.
That's true.
That's all. That's all I would say about that.
I
Meaning,
mean-
I agree. It's nowhere near like most people do
2.5
see the
would probably
percentage
land
and they
around
think
like that 60%, 70% area. So it's got a little bit higher favor because I mean it does aggregate, so
Yeah.
it has more positive than negative. Yeah.
right. And ultimately, if you look at, I think the audience score, I think it reflects more what average users are walking away with, which again tends to be a little bit more accurate. I think nowadays with so many people online and writing their own reviews.
Well, 'cause most
whereas
people
back in the
are-
day, it used to be, I think, a little bit. I would err more with the critics, but over the past 10 years, that's completely
No,
changed.
they've been wrong.
They've been completely
It's-
wrong.
In the past, because I mean, you with people who aren't critics, you always run the risk of something like with Transformers. It's just flashy, it's fun. So then you have a high audience, which they don't actually either. Avatar would probably be more likely. You have a high audience score because they were entertained. That may not mean the movie was great, but the average audience loved it, and I think that's part of it with M3GAN. Whereas critics nowadays praise things that don't need to be praised for ulterior motives. But yeah, 2.5's not a bad score. It just was, like you said, nothing special really for what it was touted. I think being like something people hadn't really seen before.
How many times do we have to see a movie about an AI gone awry?
Well, that's the thing.
I actually likened it more to Chucky.
Yes.
Child's Play
I
than I
told
did
Brandon
anything
that,
like
yeah.
Terminator or anything like that.
It was like the Child's Play remake where it was just an actual. It was originally a toy whose AI kind of went wrong for whatever reasons. But yeah, it wasn't. The only thing unique about it they didn't give enough depth to, and that was kind of the social commentary about technology raising your children. I thought that was a kind of a cool angle for the movie to take, and definitely could have been more worthwhile, but because they didn't explore that as much, nor the relationship between Gemma and Katy and give them more emotional depth, it just kind of falls flat. It's just more of a generic horror with a bit of comedy thrown in. And that stuff was done well, but it just... Like I said, I didn't dislike it, but it's not one that I feel like I need to revisit.
I enjoyed the messaging of raising children and
I just didn't think they did enough with it.
Yeah, because I mean, as somebody with 2 kids, and I'm sure Brandon's brother and Miranda, I'm sure all of them can kind of relate that there's times when we just stick an iPad in front of them and let them go because it's a moment that we get a break.
Yeah.
But it's like you can absolutely do that to their detriment. And I feel like this movie kind of calls you out a little bit for that, just simply by allowing the doll. I don't want to call her a doll. I don't know.
That's what she's
kind of like a doll. But yeah, allowing the doll to be
yeah.
allowing that thing to be the child's only outlet for emotions and everything. And I'm like, but what bothered me about the movie and that message was, I really feel like the first time the kid goes to therapy and starts throwing stuff and hitting people, that you would immediately notice something's up. I've done something wrong. Yeah. Instead, this woman who's extremely selfish throughout 95% of the movie and just overly into her career, it's like you can't see the human emotion coming out of this child, but you notice the emotion or the feelings coming out of these creations of yours more than you do an actual human being. And that just bothered me because I'm like, if this is the message you're trying to get across, you're really telling people not so much to nip it before it's too late. You're allowing it to get to the point of too late,
right?
Before you decide to, that bothered me.
I think that's just because, again, I don't think the movie gave it enough depth in general. So they touched on it and said, look, here's the underlying theme, but then they focused too much on just like I think the horror and the comedy, and even those were, I think, just mediocre. Like, I mean, it wasn't really scary, and it wasn't really like so humorous that it was like a satire of comedy. It had some nice campy, humorous elements thrown in that were really well done, but I just felt like all around it was just fairly milquetoast in the theme, in the horror, in the comedy, and I mean even the acting, which wasn't bad, just wasn't anything spectacular.
Agreed.
I'm not a huge fan of the girl that plays the lead.
Allison Williams.
Yeah,
I think she's fine. I don't remember her in anything
She was in
else.
that movie where she plays the violin. What was that called?
I'm not sure.
It's a horror
movie. I know
movie.
she played Peter Pan. Oh, no, she played Get Out, and she was the main girlfriend.
She was in Get Out.
Yeah.
I remember that. That's the only thing I remember.
That was kind of her breakout role into the big
like
screen.
A celloist or something that kills another.
The Perfection?
The Perfection.
I've never heard of that.
Neither.
Very good movie, I will say. She's not a good actress.
It's got 71 on Rotten Tomatoes. Lower than Megan.
I think Neil actually turned me on to that movie.
Score, though.
But no, I didn't think the acting was anything. I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think about production value wise, them using like an actual living girl with a mask on to play the robot?
It was not bad. There were certain things I did not like. I thought, I will say, I'll just point out blank, say it, I don't care. The part where she's dancing in the hallway, I thought that was a little too provocative.
Dance? Yeah.
I was like, why do they even need her to do that?
I don't think it was meant to be provocative, but it is.
It was to catch your eye and be alluring, and I'm like, even if it's an AI machine, I always go back to, there's only so much of a... I mean, honestly, it's kind of like the whole the scene you're describing where she freaks out and starts throwing crap and has this meltdown, and I'm like, there's only so much suspension of disbelief I have as an audience member. And again, I use the example of any film where you are the filmmaker, you have to set that believability. You have to set that bar and can't cross it, or set that line in the sand and can't cross it. The moment you cross it and you've already set the rules established in this world, then automatically it's going to become something that seems uncanny and unreal. And I know you said it in your review. They were toying with that in terms of how they
want there to be that uncanny valley
to be the creepy,
yeah,
but it didn't. It had the opposite effect of certain times that played off, and then most of the time it just played off as kind of goofy and funny. And I do think the filmmaker
some of those
did
are intentional too. I think.
Yeah. No, I was going to say I think the filmmaker did a good job in making sure that those moments were legitimately funny. They were supposed to be. They were supposed to kind of make you chuckle. But there were all like the one thing that I've seen brought up online has been her singing the song.
Yeah.
And it's but in the movie it doesn't play. I don't know exactly what they were going for. I don't know if they were going for this soft sentimental moment between her and the girl, because that's how the girl receives it, and that's how the girl hugs her and makes her feel better. And it's this nice, oh, that's so sweet. And then there's this sense of like, that's freaking creepy.
Well, I think it was supposed to be. Yeah.
I think they were trying to cater to both, but it didn't. To me, a director and a good filmmaker will make you feel one or the other and be very deliberate about how you walk away feeling, so that across the board, most audiences feel that way.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you could come back and argue subjectively, well, if you look at the audience score, most people were fine with it. Again, we're nitpicking.
Yeah.
But overall, I think I understand conceivably in most of the scenes why they used a girl with the mask on or to make it look like she was AI, of course. And they added the sound effects of the
her
the
body
machine
movement was way too fluid. You could tell that it wasn't fake. You could tell that it was a real person, and I didn't like that.
I think part of that
wanted
is
her to
just
be
because
a
it's a
little
young
more
actress
animatronic,
and she
but-
probably couldn't act that out. But again, that's not on the fault of a viewer of noticing. I agree with you. It's like that's on the fault of the filmmaker and not ultimately having
she's not supposed to move animatronic because she's supposed to be as real as possible.
Then they should have made her face
so.
a little bit more real.
Right.
Because her face looks like a piece of hard plastic, and then the rest of her body is
No,
very
that's my
lifelike.
thing.
So
it's
that
not
was
that
weird.
she moves. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's not so much that she doesn't move like a robot, but you can tell. Like, definitely the scene in the woods when she's chasing the boy.
Oh, and
it
she
shows her
goes into
ankles,
running on all
and it's
fours
like you
and
can
stuff?
you can tell. No, I'm just talking about just her walking, and it shows like even though she has a sock on, you can tell her ankle is a human ankle. It's not like a. There were just moments where I was like, you can obviously tell the face looks like this fake silicone rubber, but the rest of her body, even though they try to keep clothes on so you don't see skin, doesn't look like bulky or fake like the face does. So it's like you can tell it's a fake mask on a human body or whatever. So I agree with that, definitely.
There were a couple of moments I agree completely with the provocative dancing. There was actually you brought it up, the scene in the woods, and I thought there was I
agree with you.
when the boy puts her on the ground.
Oh yeah.
I thought I was like, oh my god, if we're about to see this teenage boy try to do something with this doll, I'm about to lose it.
I thought that was
But that's what I thought was going to happen. They really set that scene up weird to make it look like it was about to be borderline or a rape of a robot. And I was just like, this is weird. Like, why are they? They could have done that differently. Like, I understand the kid's a bully and he was being intimidating and all that, but
it
was
did
weird.
have some. Yeah, there were definitely some. And again, whether it was intentional or not, especially with like this day and age when you don't know like what they're going for sometimes, I do think it was kind of a wrong move to make because you just
think about it. The way the kid is billed is that he's a bad kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's very intentional that you're setting up to be bad. So you're like, what kind of bad thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Even though this is a fake doll.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
It's like, has he done this to a real girl before?
Right.
Like, you know, you
when he's straddling her, and again, it is a real. They're both real child actors.
Well, also, the whole premise of the movie is how lifelike this doll is and close to being a human friend.
Yeah.
So it's like
it got concerning for a moment. It did. Yeah.
And so I just think there were, again, there's so many times where I felt like the filmmaking itself fell flat on its face, and ultimately why this just kind of ended up being a mid-range film. And it mainly was because there were just so many ideas that were thrust upon the screen that they never capitalized on. It felt like they just had a spattering of different ideas, and they were like, well, we got to touch on all of these.
Yeah.
And we got to touch on all these plot points throughout. I mean, honestly, one of the better scenes in the film, not greatly acted, but one of the better ones that I thought was well done to encapsulate what I think they were going for, was the scene where the niece comes in for the demo, and she doesn't react the way that Allison Williams' character expects her to, and she starts crying, and the doll pivots. And they're all sitting here thinking, oh, crap, something's about to go terribly wrong. And then, no, the doll does exactly what they've planned it to do and caters to the situation. And I was like, now that's a creative way to show how this thing learns and it adapts. And that would be something cool to extrapolate on.
Isn't that funny, though, that the doll learns and adapts to that little girl's emotions, but the aunt sees that happen and doesn't adapt at all?
And here's the thing. What you're bringing up right now would have been an amazing plot point. Mm-hmm. It would have been an awesome story thread, but they didn't do that. Nope. They just used it as as a simple adults just don't know how to act or don't know how to discipline. And I'm like, you could have done so much more with that story beat and how we as humans are becoming more and more animatronic, creating AI as opposed to these AIs that we're trying to create more human-like.
Well, I mean, I think it's obviously that it was her whole character growth was being like kind of selfish and unattentive.
They tried,
and then, but I was saying I think that's clear in the movie. That's supposed to be her character growth. But yeah, I agree. It just doesn't. Like I said, everything is just shallow. There wasn't really that depth there. It's like it was a good idea. I think a lot of the ideas in this movie were good ideas, and it was based on a story from James Wan. So. I think, again, he does have great ideas, but depending on who executes the idea matters. Right. And
true.
I forget this director's name because James Wan didn't even write the script; he just wrote the story. So I forget. The script was written by the woman that
black woman.
There was a post. Let me pull it up real quick.
You've got to bring up this post because it kind of. It's funny because we already had our opinions deciphered. Okay,
so Gerard Johnstone was the director. I think this is kind of his first big, and it was fine, I guess, for a first, your first major production.
I thought he did something else.
I think he has, but nothing like he hasn't done a lot that's been huge. That's why I let's see. He did a movie called Housebound in 2014. And I don't know what that is. So
and that's it.
That's it. Yeah, literally, that's kind of.
He did that movie in 2014.
Yeah.
You know that one.
Which one was it again?
It's called Housebound. That's what I'm saying.
I don't know
was
his,
okay,
this was his kind of breakout,
And it's fine. Now, I didn't think it's just, I don't see him, whatever. Not to be mean. But then the writer, and I'm going to pull up the whole
pull up the at least all you got to do is really pull up the headline, the one that you sent us. There was a screenshot of the article, and it's just here's the thing. I could see the mindset of this author being what the article is explaining, but also I could see it being the complete opposite and not being this.
Okay, Akilah Cooper wrote the screenplay. Great, and it's based on James Wan's story, but she wrote the screenplay. And it was a tweet that someone had posted or whatever. It said, with M3GAN hitting theaters this week, this is a good time to point out that it was written by a black woman, Akilah Cooper. She's one of the hottest screenwriters in horror right now, having also written Hellfest, Malignant, and the upcoming The Nun 2.
Malignant was awful. Yeah. We reviewed it. It was terrible.
Hellfest is, I've actually seen both of those, and she didn't write the first Nun, but she's writing the sequel, and the first The Nun was terrible. So I'm like, she's the hottest screenwriter in horror, but all the movies you mentioned are crap movies.
Garbage.
And M3GAN was okay. So it's just one of those things where, and again, I'm not knocking her. I'm not knocking her because she's black. I'm knocking her because she hasn't. In my opinion,
I'm knocking the fact that they had to point out that she was
black. Exactly. It's the bigotry of soft
things. Good job. We've known that for a long time.
Of soft expectations. It's the bigotry of soft expectations. What this ends up doing is it immediately reduces their credibility and their ability to write down to, well, they're black, so they got to be good. We got to cheer them on. They don't have opportunities like the rest of us. And if you watch the film, I'm sorry, anybody with a damn brain in their skull will walk out of that and say, it was all right.
Yeah.
And nobody's walking away from this thing.
It's the best one she's
my gosh,
so far.
Yeah.
It's transformative. I've never seen a movie like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with just saying it's okay. But to assume and act like it's somehow hailed as this great piece of art now because a black person wrote it.
It makes me want to go back and look at that.
Actually, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt real quick and look at her whole filmography. Maybe she's written other movies that were good, and they only mentioned the bad ones.
Probably on shows.
Well, no, now that I pull it up, literally those are the only movies she's written.
Of course they are. Yeah. Well, just like with Rings of Power and the garbage that it was all people who had wrote under J.J. Abrams and Bad Reboot, but ultimately none of them actually had any credibility to their name other than they worked under somebody else who produced and created huge blockbuster franchises.
Now, she has written for some decent TV series, but how much of a role she played in writer of some of these series, and even they aren't the most amazing, but they some of them aren't bad. She's written on Grimm, American Horror Story, Luke Cage, Star Trek, Strange New Worlds.
But all of these, every time, and I look no further than even Breaking Bad. There was I forget her name. She was a writer on Breaking Bad under Vince Gilligan, who was the showrunner, and yet they turned her loose with the Rings of Power episode, and it's just absolute garbage. You have to have somebody with a creative vision at the helm who steers and guides the ship. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how good your steermen are. If you don't have a captain guiding you in the middle of the night, your ship is going to go off the edge of the earth. Flat Earth.
It's real. I saw a YouTube video about it.
I know, that's the same one I watched. It's got to be real. It's on the internet.
So if you're a horror buff and you like horror with a comedic element, I mean, you may be interested in checking M3GAN out. I was entertained while I watched it.
The best thing about it was the stupid Furby doll.
Yes,
that was the best thing about
the way it opened.
The opening, the first 20 minutes of the movie was
so good.
The way the movie opens, and then of course the scene, like you said, with the girl crying in this psychiatry office or whatever, that the reveal. Those literally were the best parts of the movie.
Yeah. Everything else I had already seen and done way better.
Yeah.
They didn't even bring back the coaster aspect. Like, they used it in one scene, and they used another one where she put it on the table.
And the adult doesn't say anything.
And then the robot doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting here, and I'm like, oh, are they supposed to say that she adapted, and she noticed something was wrong, and it was okay because something was wrong?
Yeah.
And again, so many missed opportunities. And that I blame that on the writing, and I blame it on the direction. And I don't know if the director's a white dude or not, but all I know is it's a milquetoast movie.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's fine to go check out in the theater to take some money away from Avatar. That's okay. That's good. But
I Googled, his name sounded like a white guy, but you never know. So I Googled it. And yes, Gerard Johnstone is a white man.
Gerard Johnstone.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds pretty white to me, but I wanted to double check. I'm not going to, assume anybody's race, even though I think that's taboo.
Not.
You can change gender, you can't change race.
Can't do that.
So
can't bet managers. All righty, guys.
Headlines?
Let's
get into it.
Let's roll into the headlines. Headlines are that the Golden Globes are on and nobody's watching.
Yeah.
They're all here tuning in to our live show tonight.
Just so you know, because this is really important. Angela Bassett did win supporting actress for Black Panther 2.
Gosh.
I'm like, why is she even nominated?
I don't know.
She wasn't bad, but she wasn't award-worthy.
I'm not going to.
Beautiful.
I'm going to kneel.
I'm telling you. Get down on the ground right now.
I'm going to kneel.
Give me a kneel.
I'll give you a kneel.
I'm telling you.
Don't kneel.
Oh, has Zelensky made his appearance? He was apparently appearing tonight.
Oh, at the Golden Globes?
Yes, they either there or by video.
Oh yeah,
by Zoom.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like
he's got to beg for money.
I know, it's ridiculous though. It's like you're fighting a whole war and you got time to be on the Golden Globes.
Well, of course he's got to rally the troops.
His meal ticket's up in another year, so he's got to.
Well,
heck,
something. Now it's like
ridiculous.
House of Representatives control the purse, and guess what? Republicans said no.
But think about that. That tells you everything you need to know about the Globes, right? One, the ridiculous nature of how far they've gone into the wokeness, because they were off air last year. They weren't diverse. They had this guy as host now who's making fun of them in his opening monologue, basically saying, I'm only here because they need to be more diverse. And then all the winners so far have been fairly diverse. And now Zelensky's going to get on there.
It's not just diverse. It's not just kowtowing and elitist bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's also the fact that every single one of them, and this proves this is all this was, and I really do think this is the last Golden Globes. And what this was the grandstanding of, now we're going to provide a stage for all the ills and the ilks that we've caused these people. So now we're going to provide an opportunity for them to get awarded by us and come up here and just throw crap in our face.
But I think it's also a cop-out because now they can say, oh, well, there were so few people watching because of all the diversity.
Oh, of course.
It's like that's the reason. It's because racism's the reason we're having to shut the show down because nobody will watch it because they're racist. So it's literally they can throw all of this diversity in.
As long as they don't air it again, I don't care.
They're setting up their own excuse for failure.
Right,
is what they're doing.
Right. Well, and again, they'll also browbeat you as to why this message is even more important because it's failing to reach more people.
Just like Bros did.
Right.
Like gay people didn't even go see that movie. So they blamed all the straight people.
Exactly.
For it doing horribly in the movie theater.
True.
It's like that's exactly what they're going to do with the Golden Globes.
It's kind of funny looking at, because I do have the live just to see some of the winners, looking at the winners. It's almost like they went with diverse and then what's most popular to try to lure in viewers, because Angela Bassett won Black Panther 2. Austin Butler did win for Elvis as Best Actor.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Guillermo del Toro won, his Pinocchio won for Animated Feature, which, I mean, that's not surprising, but Zendaya won for Euphoria because they do TV too. But it's just funny because it's this mixed bag of diverse...
the trans girl didn't win? Trans boy?
I don't think she was nominated.
Maybe for supporting.
Yeah. She wasn't nominated.
They
didn't win.
Zer wasn't nominated. Zay
Zigglebuff wasn't nominated. I don't know.
Zigglebuff.
Michelle Yeoh, which makes sense to me for Everything Everywhere, but it's like this mixed bag of who's the most diverse and who do audiences like the most, so that we can get attention.
Well, and I think it's funny because even in the link that of the article that I have in the description, they mention specifically about they've nominated a ton of A-listers with certain, like, they're the best original song, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Taylor Swift, in hopes that maybe they'll be there.
Natu won Best Original Song.
Who did?
His name is.
So basically, they just put the others in the category to get them there.
I don't know if I'm saying it right. I apologize. It's spelled N-A-A. It's N-A-A-T-U, N-A-A-T-U. So,
but they also specifically.
What's the name of the song? The person's name is M.M. Kirvan. I don't know.
They brought up specifically
R.R.R. That one.
Oh, Triple R.
Did it really?
Well, then that deserved
I agree
it.
with that.
Best original song. It won.
Oh,
yeah, that one did
Was it the
deserve
one where they're dancing?
I think it was.
Oh my God.
That one is
so
such
epic.
a good one.
I don't know what Natu is, but that's the one that won. But it is. I agree. It deserves it. But yeah.
That was a fantastic movie.
I'm going to watch it again.
That was so good. That was better than any... what was it? Jason Blum, funny enough, we're talking about... He tweeted that he's like, Triple R, it's its year, it deserves it.
I don't know.
He's like, I don't know anything. He's like, that's what I'm voting for. Or I don't know if he said he was voting for it, but he's like, it's got to win.
I don't know if it has the momentum to get into a Best Picture nomination, but I just really hope, because...
It'd be the only one in
it deserves
years
it
that I agree with.
There's a few this year that, like, because Top Gun I agree with, and it's...
But that we don't know if it's going to get nominated. It ain't going to win.
No.
There's no way it's going to win.
No.
They're too pretentious for that.
But, I mean, I think it'll get nominated. Almost everybody's agreeing it'll be nominated. So.
But basically, the Hollywood Reporter article that I linked to, it specifically talks about how they overlooked certain A-list stars or white stars for more diverse picks from non-popular films.
Well, I mean, that's a popular film, but I mean, why does Angela Bassett in Black Panther 2 need a acting nom? She was fine, but she wasn't award-worthy.
It wasn't exceptional at all. Yeah. But that's the point. They're putting the nails in their own coffin because they're making themselves more and more irrelevant by being completely out of touch with not only the culture, but also completely so consumed by their virtue signaling that they want to promote crap and tout it as something that's revolutionary and should be carried on in the ethos. And I'm like, no, these are things that are tepid at best. And we've reviewed all these films, we've looked at all of them, and the only reason you're rewarding them is because of the fact that they may have some diverse element in it, involved. It's ridiculous, and it's pandering to the highest degree. And anybody who has a shred of credibility and character would stand up and say, I'm not accepting this. This is bogus. All the people that are there tonight can sit here and get up on that stage and rant all they want. But guess what? You're there. They offered you the bribe, you took it.
Yep.
And this is the problem with Hollywood. They keep churning out crap and wondering why nobody shows up to put their butts in the seats.
Well, they get up on stage and complain about problems that mostly only exist in Hollywood because they fabricate them.
That, and they also just continue to exist in their own bubbles.
Yeah.
They never go outside. And I mean, what was it? Even Kevin Costner talking about going out and doing Yellowstone and actually working out outside of Hollywood. Anybody who goes out and works within a given community, apart, away from Hollywood, learns real quick. Oh wow, it's not like L.A.
A lot of them end up liking
surprise.
it. When Katy Perry was in Kentucky living here for whatever time period, she talked about.
I didn't believe that though for 1 second.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I know what she said.
I'm just saying. I think she was honest just about the fact that she was amazed at how polite, how different it was. Like, I don't think it changed her in a way that she doesn't want to go back to, a more left-leaning lifestyle. But I do think it did surprise her because she just didn't realize that there is a whole other mindset out there in America that is outside of that Hollywood bubble.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I kind of agree with Sean a little bit. I think a little bit of it is half-baked, only because I know what background she comes from. Yeah. And she went the extreme opposite of the way she grew up. Because she grew up church girl, and it was like, oh, I'm going to go completely explore that. I mean, Katy Perry is someone who is so no. I know. She's just someone who is so fake to me that she chased Hollywood stardom and fame, and literally that's the jig.
Okay, I'll throw another one. Ethan Hawke has recently been in Louisville, and he's made
he's filming here. Yeah,
he's made comments about. I was trying to think of ones, and that was the only. Katy Perry was the only one that popped up. I'm sorry.
I think it was Will Ferrell. Actually, he like broke down.
We talked about that on the show.
No. I'm sorry. Totally screwing that up. I don't think it was Will Ferrell. It was
Will Ferrell
had a breakdown in
Rainn
Kentucky.
Wilson filmed
Wilson.
here, but the breakdown was Will Ferrell, where his car broke down.
Yeah, we actually
we talked about it on the podcast.
We also reviewed the movie that Rainn Wilson was in. Too.
Where he was in the hole.
Oh, and he loved it here.
Yeah.
He had nothing but nice things. And granted, again, just like Katy Perry, you don't really expect any star to be like, oh yeah, it was awful.
Jennifer
Louisville.
Lawrence hates
awful.
it here. So.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence she's the only actress that badmouths Louisville. So
yeah,
but when she
George Clooney, he's from here and he doesn't even talk about it.
But when she comes back here, since she was she'll be the first woman that has ever been in Louisville. That's crazy. True. It's nuts. I mean, we just need her to come back.
She's the first celebrity from Louisville.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's nobody else that's... Diane Sawyer didn't come down here? Sue Grafton? No. She's the first woman that's ever been notable from Louisville. It's crazy. But no, I honestly, truly believe this is the last year for the Globes.
No, I can see that.
Because SAG Awards aren't even going to be televised this year. They've already announced that it doesn't get enough viewership.
And honestly, I respect those more than the Golden Globes. But I mean,
we continually tout every year, even though we do the Oscars, and it's so-called claim to fame.
The Oscars are dying.
Well, of course.
It's all dying.
They have been for years. Because who wants to listen to a bunch of A-listers who are ungrateful and just want to preach at you the whole time? I mean, look, the last thing the Globes did was get Ricky Gervais up there to look at everyone and turn a reflection onto the people in the mirror.
Never going to do it again.
Of course not. But that was the thing. When you have someone who has a shred of humility to get up there and say, I tell jokes for a living. Yeah. I'm no better than anybody out there. Yeah. And all of you who pretend because you sit here in with these fancy dinnerware sets and gowns and all this luxury, you think you're somehow better than the common man? Screw you. It used to be at least somewhat like, okay, yeah, you got in the glitz and the glamour for the night, but you got up there and you were grateful for someone giving you the opportunity to do what you loved and millions of people turning out.
Without the common man, none of them would have the riches they have.
Nope.
They need the people to go see their movies. They need people who will take out their trash and will be their maid and will cook their food and will cater to their every whim. If they didn't have those common people and they had to do everything themselves, they wouldn't know what to do. They would starve to death, I would assume, some of them. I mean, I'm sure plenty of them can cook for themselves, but I'm assuming there's plenty of them that Jeremy Renner, I think, can probably cook for himself.
That's what I was getting ready to mention.
He's willing to drive a snowplow. He can probably cook.
That's right. There are a few of the Hollywood
Chris
elites
Pratt would survive.
that know what it's like to be
but
one of us.
But all
they're
of
the rare
those
exception.
Yes,
and
true.
all of those are not in the limelight.
No.
Even the ones that are do not profess to be. Of course, they're getting spotted out and they're getting pictures taken, and of course they'll surprise fans when they're out and about. But none of them are soaking it up to the point of, oh, this is what I'm chasing after.
Yeah.
You know, there are the
very
differences.
private.
Oh yeah.
So for him, but someone you talked about, my man Chris Pratt. That's somebody that was in the limelight, but then when things started to come out about his possible beliefs and his even political opinions and things, that's when now he's not in the limelight all the time.
Honestly, I felt like he always kind of kept his private life.
He did,
out of the limelight as much as possible. I mean, when he was with Anna Faris, I think that was a little harder because she's not someone who stays. You know what I'm saying? But
well, and even through a very public divorce. I mean, when you're public figures, you're going to go through public.
Things are going to be public.
Yeah, something like a divorce.
I mean, if somebody nobody
public.
knew of got run over by a snowplow, it wouldn't be in the news. It's in the news because it's Jeremy Renner. I mean, it might be in local news, but it's not going to be in national news.
No, I agree. I'm trying to think of a funny way to spin it, but
I'm just saying. I'm saying if you got ran over by a snowplow, it's not going to be in national news.
Yeah,
I don't know
it's
why.
Funny, at the top of the show, one of our viewers said, "So when are you going to make a movie about Jeremy Renner's accident or whatever?" So I just threw out a title suggestion. I thought Snowplowed sounded kind of like a good title. What would you all think? What's the first title that could come to the top of your head?
I was thinking like Snowed In.
Snowed In?
Snow Day. No.
Snow Day's already taken.
Yeah, Snow Day's already taken. We got to have a good one. I mean, let's brainstorm.
Just call it Plowed because he got plowed.
That's the porno version.
That's the porn version.
Plowed.
Star Jeremy Rammer.
They're not just getting rammed; they're getting plowed.
Well, we got a porno at least.
Yeah. Well, it's sad that's what we come up with
think
best.
Of a porno than a real movie.
I don't know. That would be a good one. I like Snowplowed.
Snowplowed.
I like that.
No, the snowed in thing. No. Jeez.
Yeah, that's. Oh man.
I can't remember what the
Heart
thing.
of Ice. So he was just trying to warm up. Well, I was going to say, he was just trying to warm up the earth with his heart of gold. But after he got plowed, it became a heart of ice.
Wow. So it's like a reverse Grinch. It's like he just became a miser afterwards. It's like I tried to do good.
No.
I tried to do good.
It's just a play on words. It's like he doesn't mean anything bad. I know. It's like you're a cold-hearted person.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
no.
cold-hearted.
No.
Ooh, but he wasn't. But he's not cold-hearted. It just that's a good one. Cold-hearted, and it's about a man who regains his humility.
You're killing me, Smalls.
I'm trying here, guys. You gotta give me something better to work with.
Or you could just go
we
like
just move on to the
you
next
could go the
topic.
made for TV, which would be Snowplowed, the Jeremy Renner story.
Yeah.
Well, that would be on Hallmark.
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
All right.
Moving right along.
That was good. That was a good one. Shout out to whoever asked for that comment.
Yeah, that was your neighbor.
That was good. That was a good one. Alrighty, guys. Let's move on to our next topic here, which happens to be the good old resurrection is coming soon. Oh no, we just went biblical times. Oh gosh.
I mean, honestly,
the resurrection already
happened, but
The resurrection of everybody else.
Something else could be coming soon.
The rapture.
Yeah, the second coming.
Oh, I should have put that on there. That would have been a better lower.
But the second
coming, yeah.
of Mel Gibson.
That's also a porn movie too.
Oh gosh.
I'm sure it probably is.
And the third, and the fourth.
Oh gosh.
It's a gangbang now.
Oh my gosh. How are we even going to talk about this movie?
I don't know. I hope they don't call it The Passion 2.
No, it's called The Resurrection.
Is it?
No,
That's the
it's just
actual
going to
title.
be.
That was what it was going to be, but then
Resurrection.
they said that's the subtitle now. It's like the Passion of the
Passion 2,
Christ. No, it's not 2. It's just Passion of the Christ. Resurrection. Or the Resurrection.
I don't
That would
like
be
that.
fine.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I'd be fine with that. Based on what he has stipulated, for one, I think it's kind of he's going I don't think he planned this. He's going the James Cameron route, which I think is the right route nowadays. Instead of having a sequel, especially when something like that is just so. You're talking about a film that is extremely impactful and not something that you can replicate. I think on the whims of success from a first movie.
I have some trepidation because yes, it is one of those. It's not the type of movie that, like you said, that you could just like let's just. But again, several years later, you hope that the reason he's doing it is because he can recapture and do it just as well.
Right. I would be more concerned if this was back in like 2004.
Right after.
And after it was like, oh, we made, the highest grossing rated R flick of all time. And, 2 years later, we're going to do The Resurrection. And thankfully, if you even look at some of the making of scenes, which they came out with a version on DVD later called the Definitive Edition. And that was what all had all this
on Blu-ray.
Oh, you do? I just own the digital copy.
What's the definitive edition?
It has the special scenes, special behind the scenes featurettes,
okay.
like the making.
The
of.
movie itself's not different. Yeah.
No, but what I like about it was
also comes with an English dubbed version, but I don't ever watch that.
Oh heck no!
I'm just like.
But what I liked about it was when the original DVD did come out, it was simply just the movie. That was it. And then later, it was like about another year, 2 years later, they came out with the definitive edition because I think you could see that it would have been very easy for him to turn this into not only a success for him, but successful marketing of generating more content or more money for his pocket. Because at the end of the day, back in the day when The Passion first released, this was a fully fledged venture on Mel Gibson's part, fully funded by him.
Yeah.
He hardly had any studio backing at all except for a distribution deal after the fact to put it out there. But ultimately, no studio wanted to touch this film. And I think when you watch it from its perspective of when it released versus even after it, all of the, press, regardless of critical or praising it, that it received, you could tell where Mel Gibson's heart was. Now, look, we're all flawed human beings. I don't think there's anybody out there who's going to sit there and not point the finger at Mel Gibson and say he's completely innocent of his own, shenanigans.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, a recent movie that he was just in that I'm glad to have seen and I can compare it to in terms of just redemption is look at Father Stu.
Yeah.
And the character he plays in that. And Mel Gibson, I think, is very much a figure within Hollywood who, if anything, kind of like what we were just talking about, is totally completely against any kind of that elitist behavior in Hollywood. It's always been about...
Because Hollywood's ran by the Jews, and we know how he feels about them. I'm just saying, we know how he feels about them.
You had to go there.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Hey, the Fablemans even said it too. They're good to the Jews in Hollywood.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least Spielberg admitted
he admitted
it.
it.
That Jew. But no, I do. I think this showcases not only the time span, but Mel Gibson being of someone who is very a huge ardent Catholic. He very much is, through and through the kind of, I think very much a Catholic, full on, in terms of his daily life and daily walk. But I think he is someone that I can trust with this ability to create a sequel that is very much on point and on message. I think now's as good a time as any to bring forth a movie of this kind, especially with the current state of affairs in our culture and so much wrong in the world. I think now is the time to not only bring forth this message, but with the kind of mystique that Mel Gibson himself has for the subject matter, you can tell he's not only hungry about what it means to tell the story, but he talks about it in such a fantastical way that I think so many people, kind of scoff at. I mean, it's hard to... It's weird. You think about it this way, but so many people take for granted the story of Christ and the resurrection because not only is it maybe a faith you profess or you criticize, but it's so inundated in our culture, especially American culture, that you either have people who are hugely devout or hugely opposed to it, but yet just create out of thin air like, oh yeah, this is just something that always has been.
Well, I think I agree. I think Christians also sometimes take it for granted because even when you look at Easter versus Christmas, Christmas is always and always has been the more touted holiday. It's more celebrated secularly, not just by Christians. And I think even Christians get caught up in sometimes the secularism of the spirit of Christmas and such, forgetting the meaning behind it. That they also forget the purpose of Easter and why Easter is so much more. Yes, Christmas is important celebrating the birth of Christ, but none of that would matter if there's not a death and resurrection. So Easter obviously is so much more important, and the resurrection is important. And I agree. I think a lot of times we kind of because it becomes just a yearly annual. Oh, we're going to go to church. We're going to wear our best Easter suits. We're going to celebrate the resurrection. But you kind of forget what it's actually about because you don't stop to reflect on it. That's one thing I loved about when the Passion of the Christ first came out, is that it forced a lot of people to stop. I remember going to see that movie with the church. I remember seeing it years afterwards, annually, when the Sean's dad, who was involved with the church, would show it a lot. I mean, we had to get permission slips,
right?
But
rated R.
But I mean, if your parents signed it, like I remember he played it, youth ministers played it, and it's one of those things where I think sometimes it's good to stop and be reminded of why things are important and why the resurrection's important, and because that is absent in society in Hollywood, I hope maybe this movie is as good as The Passion and can maybe bring some of what The Passion brought when it came out.
Agreed.
I'm worried about it. I know I trust Mel Gibson. I don't really know of any films that he has directed that are not decent films. Apocalypto is one of my favorite
Maybe
films.
The Beaver, but I've not seen it.
See, I like that. But see, Jodie Foster directed that movie.
Yeah, he's in it.
He's in it.
I don't think he
that's
directed
right.
it.
Okay, never mind then. Never mind.
So, my thing is at the end of The Passion, you see the resurrection. You see him, the stone rolled away. You see the light shine on him. He's walking out, and you assume, okay, there's the resurrection. We know what happens next. Mm-hmm. And so I don't understand the need to make another film to follow up on that. I would actually enjoy more if he did a movie about the nativity and about the birth and his parents trying to get
that'll be the prequel.
That's the prequel. Yeah. But I'm more interested in that personally because I do feel like, yes, biblically, the resurrection, there's a lot of things that take place after he walks out of the tomb.
Yeah, he
there's
doesn't
a lot
just
of
walk
stuff.
out and
yeah,
ascend.
I know. But to me, those things aren't as... I don't want to say they're not as important because they absolutely are, but I don't think a film about those things can be anywhere near as impactful as a film about the sacrifice that was put on him. And I feel like there's nothing Mel Gibson can do with this movie to make it as impactful as
only
The
because
Passion.
I mean you're seeing the very genesis of the first church in terms of where it's gonna go.
That doesn't happen until 40 years after he disappears.
But you still have the apostles that are going on to carry on the word after he ascends.
If that's what it's about.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we don't know.
That's the very nature
Right.
in which he's talked about. He's like, the reason it's taken so long to prepare is he specifically has come out and he said there's so many interesting things that you could focus on in those few days that he was here after the resurrection before he ascends, that it would be so amazing to see. I mean, even just seeing the reaction of Mary and them coming to the tomb and seeing it rolled away, and it's like, I mean, I agree. I'm not saying it has to happen.
I just don't think it can be. I'm not gonna say it can't be. I don't think it. I don't know. I don't think it will be as impactful.
It's funny because I think that even the way that you're kind of not negating it, but I calling it into question, rightfully so, I think is where maybe Mel Gibson sees the challenge as a filmmaker and says, how can I take these few days where Christ was back on earth to showcase his resurrection? How can he make it so interesting that it's like it's again the story that we will continue to tell till history's end, because it truly is the death of death.
If it's a film about the apostles and about the Acts, but they're having flashbacks to when Jesus was resurrected and walking amongst them again, and remembering why they're doing what they're doing, that I think that would be a great idea. But I mean, there's the
I think it could only
the
be
movie Risen is one of those movies about that movie has another story in Jesus and his resurrection and him being seen amongst the living again by his peers is just a part of the Roman centurion story.
Kind of like Ben-Hur.
Yeah. Yes.
But see, I
Yeah.
think he could do like Passion and focus solely on just the parts of the Bible that are, and still make it impact. Will it be the same as like the tears you're weeping watching him as he's being beaten? No, I don't think it'll be that, but it could still be very powerful as far as hope goes, and as far as
joyfulness.
I think,
I get that,
and that's fine with me. I don't think it needs to be exactly what the Passion was. If he can even hone in on the the power of faith and hope that the resurrection instills, I would be fine with that. So I'm just curious to see what he does do.
And I think thematically it does make sense in terms of, I guess, I mean, I agree. It was funny because you brought up the nativity, and I was kind of thinking just the other day. I would like
to see that for sure.
Well, I was thinking the other day, I was like, what would be an amazing film that nobody has ever tried to do? And again, this kind of
they tried.
There is a movie called The Nativity.
No. I'm not talking about that. Let me finish. Let me finish what I'm trying to describe. I think nobody's tried to touch it, and what would be cool is because you don't think of everybody. It's like when you're little and you think it all happens within a given night.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about the wise man's journey taking like 2 years and getting there when he's 2, and the reason why the decree goes out to kill 2 and under. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, wouldn't it be an amazing story to just see like the 3 wise men traveling to meet this Savior that they've been promised and that has been told to them that is born? And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, what amazing journey it would be for a 2-year travel, and what, crazy crap could happen to them just on the way to see Christ, and only end with the movie of them finally bowing at the feet of this child. Yeah. I'm like sitting here, I was like, man, that would be a movie that would be just amazingly done.
That would be.
And I agree. So I agree. I think that's kind of where Mel Gibson is coming from with regard to the resurrection, is there's so many, even just with like the Passion was very clearly much more straightforward because it is a very detailed series of events that happens within the Gospels that you can almost historically pick apart or take pieces of and formulate exactly what you see in the Passion.
Yeah.
Whereas the resurrection, you have different accounts, but there's also so many different time gaps in the course of the time that he was, from the moment he was resurrected to returning to earth and then ascending, that it's kind of like, what would have happened during those days? And I think it is more fascinating, and it'll definitely be a harder, I think, film to pull off.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
In
to
terms
make
of,
it interesting, yes.
Yeah, to make it interesting, to make it emotional, to make it something that is worth telling. I mean, not that it's not worth telling, but I agree. It's like to kind of, okay, you ended on the crescendo of the resurrection at the end of the Passion, but it's kind of like, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
And what do you showcase after that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Jesus himself says it when he's on the cross. He says, it's finished.
It's done.
And that's when I'm like, that's it. That's when the victory was won. That's when everything was fulfilled right then and there. The resurrection is definitely important and a part of that, but I'm just trying to find it interesting in a film. What keeps popping in my head, it's really funny, is Return of the King. Because at the end of that movie, you've got the volcano, you've got Sam and Frodo laying there on the rock. You've got the eagles coming to pick them up. You've got all this amazing ending. And then they could have ended that movie with them all together in Elrond, running to Frodo while he's in the bed. They could have ended the movie there. But there's 40 or plus minutes of them getting on a ship and sailing out here, and them going back to Shire and starting writing the book and all this stuff. And I'm like, so that's the resurrection, that part right there. The crescendo, the climax has already happened. But now this is the hopeful, joyful, happy
I don't
afterwards.
necessarily see it that
But here's
way.
the thing. I don't either, because I would say, while you could say that, there's also, if you don't have that part, then the Return of the King is not that good.
No,
it's not as good.
I'm not saying that at all.
But
So
he's saying
I'm
they didn't
that's
make a
all.
whole nother
That's
movie
all one
after
film.
that.
I'm just saying it's almost like, to me, that's what it would be. It's the
Right.
It's
but
the sunlight after the storm.
But I also think too that when in a much more expanded way, the interesting aspects that you could have, whether it's be with the normal folk who are not the apostles, the ones who are first hearing of this, resurrected Christ, that he is back, and it's like, I mean, doubting Thomas, it's like, put your finger in my hole, that sounded terrible.
In the holes of my hands,
the hole of my hands,
and my side.
Yeah, I shouldn't have went there. Hey, we're not turning that into a porno. Come on,
no,
sacrilege, blasphemy. But no, I agree. It's like, I think there are so many interesting stories that you could tell within those few days that are before the ascension. And I don't know. Again, the challenge is on Mel Gibson's shoulders, but based on how well he handled the Passion, and how, to me, it's one of the most pivotal moments of, and that's the thing, I think it's something that transcends
Christian filmmaking, because it's not necessarily, it is a Christian film by virtue of the fact that it tells the story of Christ.
Right.
But it's not, we're going to do, I mean, again, a Christian version of that would have been like, well, we're not going to show that much blood. We don't want to show the whipping.
Or they're not going to show the parts that Mel Gibson just made up, like the parts with the devil and all of that kind of stuff.
The creative artistry.
I can see that with the resurrection.
Exactly.
They say over 500 people witnessed him alive in those days that he was walking around, but we don't hear 500 stories. We only hear a few. So.
And I'm just, to me, that's where the creativity, and I don't think Mel Gibson, at least in this regard, with this content and this kind of material, has showcased his irreverence and lack of authenticity with regard to the material. I think he's somebody who, in a historical account and in the most faithful way possible, will be able to adapt it on film, that it is emotional and that it evokes those kind of
I'm definitely
feelings.
intrigued. I mean, I'm hopeful. We don't know until we see it, but I'll definitely check it out for sure, because I mean, I'm interested. So
no doubt. I'm glad to have heard all the rumors from the last. It's probably been 4 or 5 years that this was touted, and now
we're glad that it's
they're
not
starting
just stuck,
filming.
Yeah, it's not stuck in development hell. Knock on wood, whatever.
Jim,
but I'm just saying,
have you guys seen Jim Caviezel lately?
I think he looks fine.
He looks almost 20 years older. I mean, he's old. He looks old.
Well, I was also another positive, and I'm glad you're bringing that up, that all of the main actors from the original film are seeking to return. I think there's some things you can do with makeup.
Yeah, I don't think he looks. I don't think he looks too old.
They couldn't do it
back
then, but you can now.
I've seen some people say that too. It's like Jim Caviezel looks old. It's like, I don't think he looks that old. You give him some hair dye and makeup, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at a picture of him, and I was like, I think if you darken his hair.
And honestly, one of the things that
okay.
they did digitally in the first movie that I think would be done better now were like the color of his eyes.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit too hazel in the first movie to the point where you could tell.
You can notice that.
Yeah.
But I think, even if they do some makeup on their face to make them look younger, if they de-age it a little bit with the makeup already there authentically.
I mean, everybody's praising how well Harrison Ford looks in Indiana Jones, so you can.
Yeah.
I mean, I ultimately think that, with modern technology, if it's done well, that's always the case. I think they could pull it off and make it look like it's
honestly,
right after.
To me, even if this movie comes out and it's not as good as The Passion, no harm, no foul. I think
still
that's
appreciate Mel trying to make the film.
Yeah.
No doubt, because there's not any other good.
Yeah.
Like we've talked about it before, there's very few other good faith-based movies.
No.
Agreed. Well, and authentic.
Nothing
I
out
just
there. Just
so
Veggie
many
Tales.
just.
Just VeggieTales.
Well, and I mean that is funny because we were talking about the Jesus Revolution that has the star who plays Jesus in The Chosen.
Yeah.
Who's in it? It's got
Kelsey
Kelsey Grammer. And look, there's nothing wrong. I have nothing wrong with faith-based community filmmaking and
we know
companies.
how much you love God's Not Dead.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not going to lie. I'll be the first to admit when a movie is shit, it's shit. And I don't care if you have good intentions. And there are so many...
talking about The Passion.
These
Christian movies are shit.
They are. They're garbage.
I can't even say that.
There's so many of them that are just straight garbage, and you're supposed to reward it because you are a Christian and a follower.
Yeah.
And actually, our buddy who's been on the show plenty of times, Aaron Boyd, has stated, I don't know if she said it on the show or just in our private conversations, but she's talked about how she's like, I don't think we should have a Christian subculture. I just think Christianity should be within the culture. And I agree completely. Granted, yes, you're never going to get away from certain fundamentals of the faith, like in The Passion. You can't tell the Passion of the Christ without the actual events of the Passion.
Yeah.
But there are certain movies, especially something like God's Not Dead, Jesus Revolution, or even it's from the director of I Can Only Imagine, which I thought I Can Only Imagine was fine, but it that's more so a personal narrative of the guy who created the song for
Mercy Me.
Mercy Me.
Yeah.
Mercy Me.
And
that old lady.
and that's what I'm saying. Oh,
Yes.
So many cringe moments.
Mercy Me.
But that's my point. There's just so many times where we're supposed to accept mediocrity because it's for the good of spreading the word. And I'm like, well, we're not spreading it to other Christians who already know it.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to penetrate the culture with the good news, not just to those who want to pat themselves on the back.
Yep.
And at least Mel Gibson is taking that to that level. Like you said, even the creativity and the passion of showing the devil tempting Jesus, I don't think you would have ever gotten some creative vision that way.
Yep.
But I think that's what makes it less authentic and what makes real Christians who are inundated in the culture to turn away from it and say, "Oh, that's nice. You enjoy that over there." But
I agree.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't do any good.
I agree.
Because nobody from the culture actually consumes it or sees it as of any value.
I think it's time to move.
Well, let's talk about another JC. We talk about another JC real
I don't
quick.
know. Do we have
We don't have
time?
time.
We can run through it real
Okay.
quick. We have to announce it's continuing to climb the charts.
Oh yeah, I think it's definitely, like we said it already, and I'm going to stand firm. It's definitely going to hit the top 5. It could hit the top 3 at this point.
And
I'm still not willing to give it
$2.5 billion.
I'm still not willing to give it number 1, but I think it could hit top 3.
They were saying that the way the article breaks down, and you'll see it in our description later, they talk about the multiplier effect, which is basically it's just how does the movie perform week over week after its initial release. And usually much of the blockbusters in the top 10 gained a majority of their income in the first 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, they tend to go down. They don't gain viewership.
Whereas
as it
when you
goes on.
have your runaway films that become the surprises, like Avatar, Titanic, or even Top Gun Maverick from last year, the multiplier increases such that the amount of money it takes in is more over time.
Yeah.
And of course, James Cameron touted this at the very beginning. He
he
said,
knew.
"We
He
won't
knew.
know opening weekend," and it even has shown that it's not as successful as even Avatar 1 was, and even that one wasn't a successful film early on.
No.
But two things I think you have to take into account. While it may not have the same multiplier effect as, say, Titanic, definitely not that one. I think it was like a 23 times.
Oh yeah, that one was huge.
It's gross. But even Avatar 1 was like 9 times. Maverick was around 7 times. And it's so far apparently outpacing Maverick by a little bit, meaning it probably will most definitely...
I believe that, especially with its run in China, which I posted earlier, that they're looking at it. It's possible that it'll have an extended run in China, which will definitely help it, especially seeing as China's still mostly locked down, so not as many people are
and
seeing
Top
it
Gun
there.
Maverick never released in China.
Yeah.
But I ultimately do think on the tail end, you have to take into consideration inflation. You have to take into consideration more people going. I mean, at the end of the day, it will look more successful on paper, as it should. It gained the money, but ticket prices are higher than they used to be.
Yeah,
and I think
definitely.
at bottom dollar, you still have to compare that. I mean, that's why when people do throw in inflation, Gone with the Wind still ends up ridiculously high based on when it came out. So I'm not saying it's not fair to be up in those ranks.
Oh no, I mean it deserves a success, but
course.
it's not as surprising.
$2.5 billion today, as amazing and mind blowing as that is, I'm not doubting it, is not the same as $2.5 billion 10 years ago.
No.
And the fact is,
especially when so many blockbusters nowadays are breaking that $1 billion mark anyways.
yeah. I mean, almost every single Marvel flick, every single animated movie that comes out is guaranteed to break $1 billion, or at least
800
close to
or
it.
more,
Yeah.
800
Yeah.
million
Yeah.
or more. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say the funny thing is like of late, the Marvel movies have been. They're the movies that are dropping 68% from first weekend to second weekend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
and
just-
they brought it up. The Furious 7, Jurassic World, the ones that Avatar's already surpassed. That's exactly what they did. A lot of their money came out up front and faded out quickly.
The massive fans that love the franchises went and saw it, and then it just kind of died down. Whereas Avatar
It's
picks up
steadily
people.
growing.
So.
Yep. So we'll see what happens.
It'll be interesting.
I said I think I said.
You said top 5. I thought.
I thought I said $2.5 billion was where I thought it would
Oh, you
end.
said it
Yeah,
would
you
end
said
at
2.4
2.5.
or 2.5.
Okay,
yeah,
and
last
I-
week.
Or maybe I even
think
said
you said-
lower. Did I say
you said-
1.5?
No, you said
No.
2 point.
You said
Okay.
2, yeah.
All right.
I'm pretty sure.
All right, I have to go back and look. Quote me. Write me in the comments section. Email us, rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Let's move on to our Vices segment. Talking about our vices.
I wanted to double check before we got into Vices, just
Yeah?
to see if it does land at that 2.5 billion mark. That would put it as the 3rd highest grossing film of all time.
Right.
So
And it would end up
I
being
just think that's interesting.
Avatar,
It'd be
Titanic,
Titanic
and then Avatar 2,
Yeah.
right? Or would it? No, would
it'd
it
be
eclipse?
Avatar Endgame and then Avatar 2.
Oh, that's right.
Because Titanic's the 3rd highest grossing.
That's right.
now.
Oh, it would supplant Titanic.
Yeah, Avatar's
Okay.
the highest. Endgame is next, and then if it makes 2.5, it'll supplant. Yeah,
I'm curious to know if Endgame was one of those films that had that the multiplier effect. Like if that was one that gained.
I think it would have
I don't feel like that film
it
was
the
in
highest
theaters as long as
it was
Avatar
in
is
for
going to
quite a
be.
while, though.
But that was a movie that it was just like week after week after week, more
just
and more
kept
people
making
went
money,
and saw
yeah.
it because people went and told everybody.
It was the highest grossing film for its
and-
initial run until they re-released Avatar.
Yeah.
I think you also had Marvel fans who went and saw it again.
Oh, I saw that movie,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like 4 or 5 times. So yeah.
But yeah,
But Titanic's getting re-released for Valentine's Day, so maybe it'll keep that third highest grossing spot.
because
Who knows?
of the heart of the ocean.
I don't know. It's its 25th anniversary, so they're re-releasing it on Valentine's Day. I don't know.
But yeah, what is that? In there? Oh no. I'm thinking of anniversaries, like when you're married. Was it the diamond and the platinum anniversary? I can't remember. I forget. 25.
All I know is that
silver. I think that's silver.
I have no idea.
The silver.
All I know
anniversary.
is that Titanic is now officially too old for Leonardo DiCaprio, so it's 25, and
Yeah.
he's done with it. So
That's good.
he's just he's not going to revisit that anymore.
But no, the funny thing too is I think I honestly and this will be my last thing on the matter.
I know we got to get into devices.
I don't think they should count re-releases.
I don't either.
No, I think that's
cheating.
BS. I think you should count the initial run.
Yep.
Throw in inflation, that's fine. But I think every time it's subsequently released in theaters, it should not add to the
They've
total.
released Avatar 4 times now. Like that's not fair.
Yep.
And they should put it as like release 1.
Yep.
Release 2, release 3.
So
like put them in that order because I guarantee you, release 1 and release 3 are gonna be like
Let's
way
re-release
bottom of the barrel.
Endgame 3 more times and see if it'll skyrocket back to the first.
Well, and I was telling somebody we've talked about it on the show before. I was telling somebody at work today. I was like, the funny thing is Disney still stands to benefit from both.
Yeah.
because they're the distributor, so they win if
They
Titanic is
probably,
out.
I
If
could see them
Avatar's out,
in-game like closer to like King Dynasty and Secret
easily.
Wars. Yeah.
Yep.
But we'll see. Well, let's get into devices.
let's talk about our vices. Well, we sort of had a little snafu before the
I
show.
like devices, especially with
Expensive taste.
You know, when you spend $350 for coffee grounds in your coffee.
That's right.
But that was user error, not because of the actual coffee.
No, the brew was great after the fact when I cleaned it up. A little
User
reason
error.
we're late getting on, but yeah, it's been
Expensive taste.
I mean, look,
It
I think
depends on again what your interest in. We've not talked about this specifically, but we've had similar conversations.
Well, I was gonna say, what are some of your expensive tastes?
Technology.
Something that you won't chintz on. You say technology, but that's so broad. I mean, is there a certain specific category of technology?
No,
Maybe
just
there's
technology.
all of it.
All of it.
A remote control for your TV. You're gonna spend
it's got to be
$150.
$120 or it's not worth it.
I bought the Harmony remote.
He did. That thing is cool.
I don't use it anymore.
What do you use?
Now that I have Apple TV, I just use the remote that came with that.
Well, that's probably because nothing else will pair with it, though.
It'll work. The Harmony remote will work the Apple TV.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I
Brandon's
just
got that nice PlayStation.
The Apple TV
5
will control
remote.
anything that's connected to the HDMI. It does a good job.
Well, I mean, my TV remote does that because of the HD.
It's a multimedia remote.
No,
like-
it's just the ARC will control everything that's hooked up to it right now.
CEC.
You know?
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Well, and I've tried the universal remotes back in the day. They're terrible.
I got my dad it's like $50 or $60 sofa baton is what it's called. It's some new brand of
Never heard of it.
universal remote. It's got an LCD screen and all that fancy stuff. I got him that for his birthday, I think. Hooked it up for him. Works great.
Now, there are,
Push Roku. It turns the TV on, turns the AVR on, puts it on Roku.
oh yeah.
That's legit.
I mean, it does
Nice.
it does everything the Harmony remote does, except it's $150 cheaper.
I said there are. Oh, go ahead.
No, go. You're good.
No, I was just gonna say there are certain, like, not in the realm of like super expensive, like not like, you know, hundreds of dollars for a tech item or, but there are like just everyday items that I'm willing to spend more on. Like obviously you're talking about your new coffee machine, but just coffee in general, I don't. I mean, I don't have anything against like Folgers or Maxwell House, but I don't buy those brands. I buy beans because I have a nice burr grinder. I enjoy a good cup of coffee. I buy beans and I grind them. So I mean, I generally I spend, you know, a little bit more for the beans because it tastes better. Toilet paper's the same way. I'll spend more for good toilet paper because one ply sandpaper just doesn't do it for me.
Trash bags.
Yes, actually,
I
yes.
mean,
I didn't used to. I used to buy cheap trash bags, but then you get tired of them ripping on you. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's my main thing is because I always overstuff them anyway. And here's the thing: you can buy cheap ones, not cheap, but off-brand that are good quality.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like. like as expensive as Glad brand, but I mean I just don't go for like the
Dollar General.
Tree. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
The
It
brand.
doesn't. Now what?
Trash bags.
I prefer good like washing detergent, but I will buy Dollar Tree washing detergent to wash clothes, and that don't bother me. But that's not what we're talking about. So we'll
No. That's exactly what we're talking about.
I'm just
because
saying.
I'll be honest. Part of the reason I brought this up is okay. For instance, I obviously survived. Plenty of years living in this house with a Mr. Coffee.
Oh yeah,
and it was fine.
I can survive off cheap stuff. That's not a problem.
Right, and it's just that as your tastes become a little bit more refined, I think there's a difference between I can never drink that versus I just
prefer not to.
I prefer now that I have the ability to expend, certain amounts of money on certain things that I know I'm going to enjoy or partake in a lot more frequently. It's like buying a nicer, lawn equipment so that I'm not out there frustratingly cutting the lawn or getting it spruced up for the spring, and all of a sudden it just craps out on me, or it's just
you want to buy something that's going to be worth
it's
going to
last a while,
money,
right?
And I don't think that's when I think of expensive taste. I always think about it the way my parents used to say when I wanted something. They'd be like, "Well, son, you got expensive taste." It was something that I wanted that we couldn't afford, but that was all I wanted. I didn't want the cheaper thing that we could afford. I only wanted the better thing. And I think of like you splurging and getting good lawn equipment. That just makes good sense. If you have the money to get something that's going to last you a longer time, then get it.
But there's people that would say, well, I could do the same thing with my $30 weed whacker.
And you'll buy a new $30 weed whacker every year.
Well, they could,
some
or
of them
they
say
could.
They don't.
They could sit there and bust it open and fix it, whatever breaks on it, and may try to go a little longer with it.
Yeah, I don't
Whereas
know.
I'm kind of I want it to just work, and I don't want to sit here and futz with it
you
when
don't
it
want
does
the
break
hassle
on
and the
me.
aggravation,
Right.
and that's fine. I think. I mean, if you're
Paying
willing
for the convenience.
like
Well,
if you're
that's true.
willing to work on your stuff and tinker with it, that's fine.
Your
too.
new coffee maker, it's going to last longer than a Mr. Coffee.
I hope.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm
gonna
going to be really
I'm just
pissed.
saying, that's just it. It's being able to live with the Mr. Coffee until you've made it to the
Right.
point where you can afford something nice and
Well,
you treat yourself.
And also too, when it comes down to like there are certain things that I'm willing to spend more money on, but also do take a little bit more care and attention. Something like technology or computers. I spent a lot of money on my computer, 3-4 years ago. It's lasted me this long. It's still holding up because I take care of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know there's lots of people who are like, just give me that $500 Lenovo and that'll work.
People
Yeah.
like, I'm just going to Walmart and
Oh,
buy
right.
a $120 gateway.
I'll be the first one to admit that what you spent on that computer, I'm just like, that's insane. That's overkill. That's overkill.
But
it
But
works for
again,
him.
if you future-proofed it and you had the money and you looked at your finances and know I can afford to have that, then what the hell?
well, and,
Like,
and the
I
fact that
don't-
it allows me to me, it's more in that regard reliability.
Yeah.
And I'm paying for the fact that I don't want something because, like you said, there will be people who are like, I'm going to go up there on Black Friday and get the first $200 laptop I can buy.
Yeah,
and I'm
let
like,
me get this Toshiba that's gonna
expect it-
crap out in
right?
3 months.
Yeah.
Exactly. The hard drive's going to crash
Yeah.
in like 3 months, or the power supply isn't going to work, or you're going to lose all your data, or you're going to get hacked like crazy
Yeah.
with all this malware on it. And you're going to be like, well, this is a good machine. I'm like, you get what you pay for. And I hate to say it, it's like, no, you don't have to go out and spend $5,000 on
Yeah.
a laptop.
Yeah.
But I tell people all the time, I'm like, that's why Apple's frustrated me definitely in recent years. But I still tell people who I'm like aren't necessarily buying one. They're like, that's too expensive. I'm like, do you want a laptop that's going to last you 10 years based on what you do with it?
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you buy this laptop now at this price, you will not have to buy another one for 10 years.
I was gonna say,
based
my
on how
MacBook
often
from
you use it.
2010 still going strong. So
There you
I
go.
just baked my iMac again a couple months ago.
String it
and
along,
it's,
man.
And it's working again.
how old is that one?
It's a 2010.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. 2010.
Dang, holy
Say
crap.
my MacBook's been like the only thing wrong with is it needs a new battery, and I could replace that. I just haven't
Yeah.
really needed to.
There's
so
a
I
lot
haven't.
of things. There are, like, I will say, going back to the expensive taste, like, I've got a backpacking trip with guys from church that's coming up in a couple weekends. We're going to go just straight up living out of our backpack and sleeping in the woods and
Yeah,
stuff.
you want good
So,
stuff for that.
The
yeah.
thing is like I'm getting on Amazon, I'm buying all this stuff. I'm trying to save money because I don't want to take out a personal loan to go on this one backpacking
Yeah,
trip.
right.
And so I'm trying to find the cheapest sleeping bag and the cheapest cooking set, like burner and cook stove to take out. And I'm getting this crap in the mail. and opening it, and I'm like, this is garbage.
Yeah.
Like this isn't gonna last me the weekend.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. So I'm having to send a bunch of crap back
To be like,
and
I'm not paying for this.
Then I order the stupidly expensive stuff and get it, and I'm like, this is gonna last me a long time.
Yep.
Now I better go backpacking more than just this weekend with all the stuff that I've spent.
See, then you
Well,
try
we
to
need to
play
all
the
go camping. We
but I'm
say
just
that every
like,
year, but
we
we
do,
need to
we
actually
really do.
go.
Like,
But
I mean,
I've done that too, though, where you kind of play the mental gymnastics of, well, now that I have it, I will do these things more.
sometimes
maybe.
that works.
Well,
sometimes
my
it doesn't.
rule-
Sometimes it don't work.
It
Yeah.
doesn't, but I've got to hold myself to this. But part of my rule for buying the coffee maker was that for 4 months, because of the price of coffee and how often I bought it before at Starbucks or Heine Brothers or wherever, I cannot buy coffee out for 4 months, and it will have paid for
why
itself.
would you want to?
Well, I mean, now I don't.
Starbucks
Honestly,
is terrible.
Well,
Yeah,
and
the
that's the
Starbucks
thing. I
is,
would.
but there are good coffee houses.
That's even for just a black coffee. Now, granted, I was also in the bad habit of not just getting a coffee. That's how they get you. I'd get like,
you
scone
get a pastry,
or
yeah.
a pastry.
Yeah.
And then not only is that bad for my waistline,
Chum.
it's also bad for my wallet. And so I averaged it out, and I was like, if I'm spending about $8 or $9 with just a black coffee and a pastry of some kind, going to Heine Brothers or Starbucks 2 or 3 times a week,
Yeah.
that was my average trip. I'm like, it's going to take me about 4 months to pay this off if I don't go. And I'm far better for not only paying for this in the short term and saying that it's worth the cost, but then, like you said, if it lasts well longer than that, which it damn well better, then I'm going to not only have paid for itself, but I get to have something that I can enjoy right here in my own kitchen.
And I've actually, in similar ways, have been better about that the last year or two. Changing part of it is also changing in salary and how much I make going from one job to another, but in an attempt to being a little bit poorer and needing to save money, as far as just like frugalist spending, like like, oh, here's a video game I want to play. I'm going to buy that as soon as it comes out, even though I have 3 I haven't played yet. So now,
Exactly.
and now it's that's like books, movies. Now anything that I want, I'm like, let's finish the back catalog first.
Yep.
And when you're done with that, if you have the money and you still want it, we'll get the new thing.
Yep.
But there's no point getting the new thing if you know you're not going to touch it for a year anyway.
You know how many freaking books I've bought in the last 2 years?
No, I've
I-
been guilty of that.
And honestly, I looked at them. I looked at all the books I had bought, and I had one of my goals for the new year was to read at least one, which it's not a lot, but
I have
a book a month.
I have a list, yeah.
And I don't read. I really don't.
I have
but
a
the
list
fact
of
is,
certain things,
I had 12 books on my list that I already
bought,
had
never read.
purchased and have not read. And I'm like, that just shows you right there of just how much I've bought before in the anticipation and hope to do something, but then I don't use it or don't utilize it. And granted, look, it's the beauty of American consumerism, but it's also a point to check yourself and say, all right, maybe I need to actually utilize what I
It's
have.
like you want, you buy, but then it's like, but if you're not actually using it or utilizing it, then it's just it's a waste of money.
Well, not just that. It tells me that I'm getting the satisfaction of buying something in the moment, as opposed to the actual gratification of enjoying what it is thoroughly that I bought.
Yep.
And to me, that's a character flaw in my own line of thinking and reasoning than it is, oh, I just want to buy stuff and not. I mean, exactly.
No, I'm very much guilty of that, and that's one thing, just like you, that I've gotten better at. But then even this year, I have made a list of certain things that it's like that I have a back catalog of, whether it's books, games, things I want to write, where I'm like, okay, and it's not a whole lot, but it's like, here's a list of things that I own or want to do that I want to accomplish this year.
Yeah.
And then once we're done with that, we can move on to whatever other thing, rather than, because you do. I'm guilty of it very much of, I want that because that's something I enjoy, but then I'm not going to touch it for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, what about you, other than the camping gear?
I mean, it's really weird because like with groceries or things like that, like I'm willing to buy the cheapest stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like I don't
Same.
care. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Kroger's.
I'm gonna crap it out.
Kroger's
Yeah.
jelly tastes just like
I was gonna
Smucker's.
say
It doesn't taste any
ketchup
different to
isn't
me.
any worse than
Yeah.
than
That's the
anything
stuff
else.
that's the stuff that I'm just like the brand doesn't
Yeah.
bother me that
No,
much.
no.
There's a couple of things that I'm
Bread
like, no.
is not good.
Okay,
No.
yeah,
not
no.
good.
No.
It already comes dry and
But the Kroger's bread is good.
Yeah.
And then Walmart's
great value bread's
equate is fine. Like there's a lot of things that I'm willing to kind of skimp on, and when it comes to like technology, like the cables, USB cables, I'll buy the dirt cheapest
Yep.
cables I can get.
Well, yeah.
They're better. They're just as good as the Apple cable. Like I don't understand what the hoopla is. Why would I pay $40 for a lightning cable when I can buy Amazon's lightning cable
100%.
for $7?
And these don't
100%.
last.
Like,
these don't last.
They don't last any
either.
longer.
Yeah.
But then
Apple
there's
say
other
they
things
do, but
like,
I was like, they
I want one of those. I want a robot vacuum.
Yeah.
And after seeing yours, I ain't taking a $200 one. I'm not settling for one until I get one with a bin
The
that
hopper?
sucks it up. Yeah, the hopper and all that.
Honestly,
I'm
that
not
was the
doing
only
it.
reason I preferred that one is because I just didn't want to have to empty it every.
But
every
see, I
couple
would
days.
agree that's a little different because you're paying more for added value, whereas these dumb cables, you're only paying more for the name.
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
No,
so I have
absolutely.
expensive taste when it comes to. Yeah, I see that. I want the. It's like that a camera. When it comes to a camera, I'm not gonna just buy
No, right.
the
You want a little Canon
point and shoot
click?
camera. No,
Well,
I'm
and
not gonna do that.
especially and what irritates me there on that topic is when you get to the point of like, okay, well now I know enough about it, I'm going to go with a Canon brand, and then they're like, well, you can buy this low end model. The low end model's still $600, and I'm like, well, why am I going to shell out $600 if I could spend $300-400 more and get something 10 times better?
yeah.
Like, and that's how they get you. But it's the same thing as where it's like the added value is so different in terms of the higher end that I'm like, well, why not just shell out the extra
Apple
money?
is the same. There's times I've looked at something and be like, oh, that does everything I needed to do. But if I'm going to spend $500 and I can get the one for $700 that does twice as much, what's $200 different?
No.
Right. No, exactly.
A lot. It's a lot, but still, you're paying for the added value.
And I think that's the main differentiator here is that ultimately, if you understand what the expense is, and that you may have expensive taste, but you're incorporating it into, okay, well then maybe it's going to take me another 2 months to save off, stave off that amount of money, put it to the side to buy what I want. It's far worth it in the long run to have waited that length of time. And heck, I've even thought about this with TVs. It's like, definitely before I ever shell out whatever expensive amount of money it is for the latest and greatest TV, I'm going to sit there and think, okay, when's the next round of TVs going to be released and new features be available, as opposed to, will I be willing to sacrifice those features to get this newest model cheaper, or do I want the latest and greatest, and by the time I save up that amount of money, it will be the latest and greatest model.
I have contemplated buying a bigger TV.
Tell you 65.
I can't read the dang. Here's
Once
the thing.
you go big, you don't go back.
I remember when
You don't go back.
42 was big.
Yep.
And now it's
Yeah.
like 65, but when you set 10 feet away from the TV, 65 looks like a 35.
Yeah, you're right.
Like it just
I think
doesn't. It's not big.
Mine's only 55.
His
and
is
it's,
yours
Yeah.
is 55.
And when I play Elden Ring, man, I can't read the dang menu, and I'm like, I have to either get closer or I need it. That's why I was like, I got to buy a new TV just so I can read. I'm getting too old. I can't see nothing.
I'm telling you, the next thing to do is laser projector. The short throw laser projector.
I
man.
actually have thought about that too. It's like, well, I could just get a 4K.
They're expensive.
They
as
are. That's,
Well, I
that's,
was gonna say-
that's the thing. They
$2,500
are.
bucks.
They are
Yeah.
extremely expensive.
And at that point, I mean, I get it, but for the amount, like you said, if you're paying that much for the clarity and the crispness, I'd almost want like you could buy. I looked it up now.
Buy a TV.
It's ridiculous that I think LG's like mid-range OLED, 83-inch,
Yeah.
mind you, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Is like $2,500 now,
Yeah.
That's not
and,
bad.
which is not
That's
bad
right.
for
You can-
OLED.
You can get an
For OLED,
amazing
yeah.
TV.
You're talking about
for a decent
OLED
price,
that used to be two years
Yep.
ago would have been $5,000, and now it's like 23. I mean, that shows you just how ridiculously.
But my thing is, why would you get an 83-inch when you can have a 300-inch for the same price? Because those short throw laser projectors will do a 300-inch picture, and
then you have
the
to
projector
have-
is 6 inches from the wall.
But you have to have a 300-inch wall to
you have
put
to
it
have,
on.
You have to have a screen.
And I mean,
Well, it doesn't
but-
have to be that
But what
big.
about 200 or 120? Like
yeah, I mean, if you can
the
narrow it
possibility
down.
is there.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
get a screen that I can just drop down from
the
the
screens.
ceiling.
The screens are $4,000
I know.
for
Just
a silver.
get
it
a
has
sheet
to be a silver
and stretch
screen.
it tight.
I know,
Get some
yeah.
canvas
Yeah.
and make it up, man. You can
the
make it
screen
work.
has
But
silver
that's the
in
thing
it.
too. You're not only
That's
just
insane.
Yeah,
you're
no,
not
that's why
only
they call
bu-
it the silver screen.
Right, but it's
it
just
literally
crazy
does
they-
have reflective silver in it, so that the light it reflects off of it the right
But
way.
that's the thing. You're not just paying for the projector because you have to have something
Yeah.
like you could spend thousands of dollars on a 4K nice projector, but if you just put a sheet
It's a
up
whole
there,
package.
It's
it's
the
going to
same
look
thing
like
with
crap.
the TV
yeah.
though. You upgrade to HDMI 2.3 or whatever it comes out in the next TV. Your receiver's only 2.0.
Right.
My
You gotta get a
receiver's
new
up to date.
receiver.
I'm good. See, so
Yeah.
now I need the TV.
There you,
I just
I
got
get
a receiver this year.
I mean, it's funny because, like you said, yeah, with anything, you can go down a rabbit hole. It's
Oh,
even like
yeah.
coffee makers, robot vacuums, cameras, especially.
It's like Apple. It's like you get your MacBook, then you need an iMac, then you need an
Ecosystem.
iPad. Sean's breaking away though.
I'm breaking
He's
away
breaking
one piece at a time.
he's trying to break out.
one piece at a time.
Apple doesn't have a hold on him anymore.
Well, they do. but
Only
it's-
for a little while
It's
longer.
deteriorating though.
Hey, they came out with the announcement. The February is the Galaxy 23 keynote. So who
Okay.
knows?
We'll
It'd
see. I'll be
tuning
ready
in.
for an
I don't know
upgrade
if you
by then.
want, Samsung in the Android universe. You may want another one like Huawei, or so China can read all your stuff.
He wants
You can't
that,
even buy those in America anymore.
You could
He
find
wants- he
ways.
They
wants a
banned.
Windows phone.
I mean, on Amazon now they have them to where they don't work on our networks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They work on like T-Mobile and something like
Basically,
that.
the ones
they don't
that-
work on AT&T or Verizon.
So they've banned them.
Yes.
They've kept them.
They've banned them. So
Okay. Well,
Well, I think that's it.
all I know is we definitely all have expensive tastes.
we do.
We just described it for you. I think everybody listening is like
plenty
those
of people
freaking
do though.
Yeah, they do, and
It just
it
depends on
depends
what.
on
It
what
depends
category.
on what it is.
Everybody has,
Yeah.
I think,
I
a
think
category
it's
they're willing to
ridiculous that a
splurge
woman
on.
will spend $300 on a purse. That's stupid to me. But
Freaking
you know,
Kate Spade,
Yeah.
man. I'm
Freaking
telling you.
shoes.
But
Yeah.
in reverse, they would think we're stupid for spending that much money on a piece of tech. So it's
That's
like
right.
okay,
Hey, my brother said it best though, and he was talking about how with Wendy would get mad at him because he'd have these like real expensive shopping sprees, even though he would complain about hers, and she's like, "Well, I'm not dropping thousands of dollars on one of mine," and he's like, "Fair point." And he's like, "But you get to enjoy all the stuff I buy." He's like, "I don't get to enjoy the stuff you buy," and
That's
I was
true.
like, "That's true too."
That's true.
It's like it's a fair way of looking at it.
and you have to. I also say how often, because if he's doing like $1,000 purchase, but she's making $300 to $400 purchases,
Exactly.
that adds up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. Keep track. Keep score. Husbands
score.
and
That's what.
wives.
That's yep. That's how you have a healthy marriage.
Yeah, that's right.
Score.
Alrighty, guys, right there at the bottom of the screen, you can see all of our social media links: Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweets, Red Moon Pics, and search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. We appreciate all of the love, and thank you for tuning in instead of the Golden Globes. Nobody wanted to watch those tonight. Why?
I don't
Why
even know
would
who
you?
won anymore.
Who cares? This is
look-
the
I'm gonna
last
look it
show.
up.
It's over. I can't wait to watch the racist
Who won
rants.
Best Picture?
Right there at the bottom of your screen, you can also reach out to us the old-fashioned way, RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com. Keith, how you say that?
RMPodcast at redmoonproductions.com.
Just beautiful. Awesome. We are reviewing.
I'm trying to get better with it.
We didn't even
better.
bring it up this past week that we swapped movies on
Spielberg
everybody.
won Best Director.
Oh, well,
What did?
Spielberg.
because of his personal narrative.
Best Director. That's not the best.
That means he won't get an Oscar then.
Probably not.
He don't need it.
I mean, the Golden Globes have been irrelevant just like the Oscars have been for the last few years. They haven't been the teller of the Oscars for the last 5 years since we've been doing the show. But no, it's funny because we didn't talk about how we completely switched movies from last week. We were originally going
We
to do
said it'd be
Babylon.
either or. We said.
Okay, we
Yeah,
did?
we
Okay.
did. Yeah.
So
yeah.
obviously Babylon is next week. We're doing that review. So if you have a chance to check out Damien Chazelle's latest epic, because apparently it's 3 hours long or like 2 hours and 40-something minutes. Whew. And not touted very highly. So
no, it's not.
we'll see.
We're gonna suffer through it for you.
That's
though.
right. We'll let you know our opinion if it's worth the attention and all the naysayers are wrong. So that'll be next week's show. Until then, guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside our normal new host,
Sean Sebastian.
And
The Golden Globes are still on, sadly.
we started and ended within the time of the Golden Globes. Way better.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.